I used to think that love could survive a few stumbles. That one careless comment wouldn't unravel the kind of warmth we'd built. For months, Noah had been the steadiness I didn't even know I needed. Quiet, observant, almost too patient. The kind of man who noticed when my shoelace was untied or when my throat sounded hoarse from talking too much at work. So the night everything cracked felt surreal. Like watching a slow-motion accident, I couldn't stop even though I was the one causing it. It started at dinner. Nothing fancy, just takeout Thai and a Netflix show playing in the background. Noah was telling me about a promotion his boss had hinted at. His face lit up with that familiar mix of humility and excitement he always had. I should have just listened, celebrated with him, let him have that moment. But my mind drifted, stupidly, recklessly, to my ex, Caleb, the man whose name should have stayed buried where I'd tried to leave it. I don't know what made me say it. Maybe the conversation felt too safe. Maybe I felt too seen. Maybe some dysfunctional part of me panicked. All I know is that the words slipped out like poison. Caleb used to get the same kind of promotions. He was always moving up. The silence that followed was immediate, like someone had pressed mute on the entire room. Noah blinked, almost as if he wasn't sure he'd heard me right. His fork hovered in midair. And in that moment, a part of me already knew this wasn't going to end lightly. Why would you bring him up right now? His voice wasn't angry, just stunned, which somehow felt worse. Anger fades. Shock lingers. I tried to backpedal, but the damage was already blooming across his face. I didn't mean it like that. It just came out wrong, I said, fumbling for words that suddenly felt too small to fix anything. He didn't respond. Not a sigh, not a word. He placed his fork down with deliberate softness, like he was afraid of breaking something that was already cracked. His eyes lowered, and when he finally looked at me, there was something unfamiliar there. Distance, maybe even disappointment. I tried to fill the silence, to explain how Caleb wasn't someone I missed, how the comparison wasn't meant to diminish him. But the more I talked, the worse it sounded. Each ramble dug the hole deeper. Noah finally spoke. You've compared me to him before. Not directly, but I felt it. His voice was so steady it made my stomach twist. I thought maybe I'd been imagining it. My heartbeat thudded painfully. I didn't realize he'd noticed those small slip-ups, the moments I hesitated before answering questions about my past, the awkward pauses whenever old memories resurfaced. I thought he'd brushed them aside. Turns out he'd just stored them quietly in the back of his mind, hoping I'd eventually let go of whatever ghosts still haunted me. I reached across the table, but he leaned back. Not dramatically, just enough for me to feel the space widen. A tiny gesture, but it felt like the floor shifting under my feet. The rest of the evening dissolved into silence. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He didn't storm around or slam doors. He just withdrew, calmly, almost respectfully, like he was making space for me to realize what I had broken. Around 10 p.m. I heard him moving around the bedroom. Opening drawers, closing them, zippers, soft thuds. At first I told myself he was just getting ready for bed, but something in the rhythm was wrong. Too purposeful, too tidy. I walked in to find him folding a couple of shirts and placing them inside a duffel bag. My throat dried instantly. What are you doing? He didn't look up. I think I need some space tonight. Noah, please. I'm not angry, he said quietly. I'm just tired of feeling like I'm competing with someone who isn't even here anymore. His words hit harder than anything he could have shouted. I stepped forward, reaching for him again, this time desperate. It was a mistake. A stupid one. I don't want Caleb. I don't think about him the way you think I do. He zipped the bag and finally met my eyes. You don't have to want him to still measure me against him. For a moment, neither of us moved. I could feel the apology rising in my throat, messy and frantic, but he was already walking past me, already slipping out the front door, already choosing silence over confrontation. The door closed with a soft click. Not a slam, not a statement, just an ending I wasn't prepared for. He left that night without another word, and the quiet he left behind was louder than any fight we could have had. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the couch with the untouched Thai food growing cold beside me, replaying every second of the conversation. Every syllable I wished I could pull back. The apartment felt hollow without Noah's soft footsteps or the faint sound of him humming off-key while brushing his teeth. He had slipped out so quietly it felt ghost-like, as if he'd been erased rather than walked away. By morning, the silence had turned suffocating. My phone sat in my hand like a stone. No messages, no missed calls, nothing. I told myself to give him space like he'd asked. But the longer the hours stretched, the more I realized space wasn't always neutral. Sometimes it was a bridge. Sometimes it was a cliff. By evening I finally broke. I texted him. "Can we talk, please?" The message delivered instantly. "Read." Nothing. I waited 5 minutes, 10, an hour, nothing. My mind spiraled into places I didn't want to go. What if he left for good? What if I had pushed away the one person who actually showed up for me? What if comparing him to my ex was just a surface-level mistake layered over deeper messes I still hadn't dealt with? Around midnight I couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed my coat and keys and drove to his place. He hadn't changed the passcode on the building yet, which gave me a stupid tiny spark of hope that all wasn't lost. His apartment lights were off, but I could hear movement inside, slow-paced, restless. I knocked, gentle at first, then again with more urgency. When he opened the door, he looked exhausted. Eyes rimmed red, hair a mess, hoodie thrown on like he hadn't cared enough to pick anything else. Seeing him like that hurt more than the night before. He didn't ask why I was there. He already knew. "Can we talk?" I asked, voice barely steady. He stepped aside and let me in. The apartment smelled faintly of soap and something warm, like he'd just gotten out of the shower after a long day of thinking too much. We sat opposite each other. Him on the couch, me in the chair he always joked was too fancy for eating snacks on. The distance between us felt symbolic. "I'm not here to argue," I said quietly. I owe you the truth." Noah leaned his elbows on his knees. "Then give it to me." I swallowed hard. I don't love Caleb. I don't miss him. I don't want him back. But I do still carry pieces of that relationship in my head, not because I want to, but because it hurt me in ways I didn't fix before moving on. You deserve someone fully present, and I gave you someone who was still patching herself up. He didn't interrupt, which somehow made speaking harder. I compared you to him because I got used to doing that without thinking. I measured everything back then, how much he cared, how much he didn't, what he got right, what he didn't. It was survival. It became a habit. And I'm ashamed that habit leaked into us. Noah let out a slow breath, staring at the floor before finally looking at me. I never wanted you to pretend your past didn't exist. I just didn't want to feel like a benchmark you kept checking against someone else's shadow. His voice wasn't cold. It wasn't angry. It was tired, worn thin by uncertainty. I nodded. "I know. And I'm sorry. Not the empty kind, the real kind. The kind where I'll actually do the work to change. I don't want to lose you because of something I should have fixed in myself a long time ago." He leaned back, his expression unreadable. "Last night, when you said his name, I felt like I lost a version of us. Not because of what you said, but because of what it revealed. I needed to step away before I said something I couldn't take back." I nodded again, hands trembling slightly. "Do you think we can come back from this?" He didn't answer immediately. The pause stretched long enough to make my chest tighten. Finally he said, "I don't want to end things, but I need reassurance that I'm not living in someone else's shadow. I need to know you want a future with me, not just a distraction from your past." His honesty tightened something in my chest. Grief mixed with relief. I stood slowly and moved closer, stopping just a few feet away. "You're not his replacement. You're not the runner-up. You're the person I chose because you're gentle in ways he never was, patient in ways he rarely understood, and steady in ways he never learned to be. I don't want to compare you two ever again, not because you're similar but because you're not. Not even remotely." Noah's expression softened, just barely, but it was enough. He stood, closing the distance between us. Not too fast, not dramatically, just enough to make me feel the shift. "I need time," he whispered. "I can give you that," I said. "And I need effort. Real effort. You'll get it." For the first time in 2 days, his shoulders loosened. He didn't reach for me, but he didn't push me away either. And somehow that middle ground felt like its own kind of hope. When I finally left his apartment, the night felt different. Not healed, not perfect, but open. Like we hadn't ended. Like maybe the silence he walked into wasn't goodbye, but a warning, one we could still come back from. Maybe comparing him to my ex broke something. But maybe honesty, messy, painful honesty, would be the thing that rebuilt us. Or maybe not. But at least this time I wasn't running from the truth. And neither was he.